say the game is getting old. Monday morning and your coffee's cold. Life is not what you want it to be. You need another chance.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to A New Direction. My name is Jay Izzo, and oh man, do we have a great show for you today. I am telling you what, this is so much fun. This is right in my wheelhouse. This is the area that I love just to study more than anything else. I am with Dr. Thalma Lobel. She wrote this book entitled Whatever Works. But I'm going to tell you something, all right? Because here's what's in it for you, all right? Because we've talked about that. Here's what's in it for you. Do you know that there are little things that are going around in your office, like how your office is organized? Light, the kind of light, colors. How about your smartphone, which may not make you so smart after we talk to Dr. Lobel. But here's the deal. There are little things that are happening in your office that are affecting your productivity, that are affecting your performance, and not just you, but your people. You are going to want to listen to her give you the research that demonstrates that, you know what? There's things going on in your office that you could be changing that could be increasing your productivity, increasing your performance. I'm telling you, it is awesome. She is awesome. She is fantastic. She is outstanding. She is warm. She's lovely. And here's the other part. She's in Tel Aviv, Israel, right now. How awesome is that? Tel Aviv. Oh, I am telling, and she is so smart. Oh, yeah. You better pay really close attention because she's brilliant and you're going to love her to death. But before we get to Dr. Thalma Lobel, let's do what we do every week. And you know what that is, right? I walk you through your training. I want to ask you, how's your training going in the 4 areas of your life out there, right? You know, look, we're 4-part people. We're physical people, we're mental people, we're emotional people, we're spiritual people, right? And right now we're in the midst of this pandemic thing. And so, you know, what we know is that when we are under stress, when we are really under all sorts of stressful situations, or we're tired or we're exhausted, here's the truth. At the end of it all, you're only as good as your training is. And if you haven't trained well, right? If you haven't practiced well, if you haven't been doing the things you're supposed to be doing in the 4 areas of your life, you're going to be whatever you've trained to be, right? So let's go through the 4 areas of your life. All right. So physically, right? What do I mean? What's your training like physically? Well, how's your exercise regimen going? But also, how are you eating? Are you eating well? Right? Are you drinking enough water? Are you getting enough sleep? Right? Are you getting enough sunlight? Vitamin D, right? Those type of things are so critical. So if you were to tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being my training is just not very good, Jay, 10 being my training is so good, it's awesome, how would you rate how you're doing on your training every day? And listen, here's the deal. 5 is average. Now, the point of this whole exercise that I do with you every week isn't that I'm trying to get you from a 3 to a 10. The whole point of the exercise is for you to check in to go, what do I need to do to improve? How can I improve my training? What can I do? Do I need to take an extra walk with the dog? Do I need to just take an extra walk? Do I need to get out in nature? Dr. Lobel will tell you, you know what, that getting out in nature can do amazing things to de-stress you, right? And improve your productivity. She's going to talk about that and when we talk to her. But you could be doing all sorts of things to improve yourself physically. So on that scale of 1 to 10, how are you doing? And then you got to ask yourself the question, what can I do to improve what I'm doing? All right? So there's your first number, all right? Second number, mentally, right? So what's mental training look like? Well, I'll tell you what mental training look like. Mental training looks like this. If you read a book, right, where you're challenging your mind, where you're challenging what you're thinking, when you're challenging, you know, what is going on in your mind, rather than letting things come at you, right? It's so easy to let the news just kind of come at you and you're really not mentally challenging yourself. Whereas if you're taking an active role in your education, an active role in improving your wisdom, an active role in improving your knowledge, an active role in your understanding, where you're really working, right? That's improving your mind. Right? And I don't care how old you are. You could be listening to the show and be 6, or you could be, 90, right? Your mind can still work if you were willing to take an active part of that, right? So on a scale of 1 to 10, right, I'm asking you out there, 5 being average, how is your training going when it comes to really your mental training, right? And then same question, what can you do to change it, right? So you got two numbers. You got a physical number, mental number. Now the third number is emotional. And you go, Jay, how do you train yourself emotionally? Well, I'll tell you how you do that. If you've ever driven in traffic and somebody cuts you off, what's your response? There's your emotional training, right? Is your first emotional response, well, that so and so, or is it, well, maybe he's having a bad day. Well, you know what? I did okay. Right? See, those are opportunities to train yourself emotionally. Okay. The other piece of training yourself emotionally is tapping in to the emotions of others. How willing are you to listen to the emotions of other people? Right? See, that's all part of emotional training. Right? When we can understand the emotions of others, when we are willing to listen to the emotions of others, and then when we're able to label them accurately, right? Which means that you can improve your emotional grammar. That's all part of emotional training, right? And so how are you doing with your emotions? How are you doing keeping your emotions under control? You know, I used to tell my psychology students when I taught psychology in college, I used to tell my psychology students, here's the truth about emotions. You can kick me in the shin as hard as you want. The truth is I have a choice how I want to respond. Right? So what happens is emotionally, what we forget is that our emotions, we have a choice. I don't have to respond the way that people think I should respond. I don't have to respond that way. I have a variety of choices available to me that I can choose to respond in an emotional way or not an emotional way at all, right? So how's that training going, right? Scale of 1 to 10, right? 5 average, you got that number? So you got 3 numbers, physically, mentally, emotionally. Then finally, the spiritual realm, right? And you go, Jay, I'm not really spiritual. I'm not a spiritual guy. I'm not a spiritual girl. I don't believe in the spiritual stuff. Yes, you do, and you don't even realize you do, right? Because if you remove the physical, the mental, and the emotional, what do you have left? Right? And so what happens is we go, well, I'm not really spiritual. But the truth of the matter is, do you have plans for the future? Yes or no? And everybody's shaking their head. Well, yeah, of course I got plans for the future. Well, if you have plans for the future, that means you have faith. And if you have faith that those things are going to happen, that becomes spiritual, doesn't it? Now, here's the other thing. The spiritual piece also has to do with what gives you a center, what puts you at peace, what regardless of what's going on, what can give you right at the heart of who you are, centers you down. Now, for some people, that's God. For some people, that's meditation. For some people, that's nature. There's a variety of things that people try to use that give them that sense of peace, right? We've heard music touches the soul, right? Matter of fact, Dr. Lobel's going to talk. We're probably going to get into some music because that's going to be a hot topic. But the truth is, music touches us in a way that's really we can't really see or really truly understand, but we try to. But it does touch us in some way that's just different than the physical, the mental, and the emotional, right? So then you have to ask yourself a question: How is that routine going for you spiritually? And then you need to ask yourself a question: Is it working for you, right? And then what do you got to do to change it? All right, so you have 4 numbers, right? Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Think of those like the legs of a chair. If the legs of your chair are uneven, you know what happens? Your posture gets bad, and you're in pain, right? By the same token, if your chair's too low, it's hard to eat at a normal table, isn't it? Right? Speaking of someone who has all 4 of her areas all together, I'm going to tell you what, her name is Dr. Thalma Lobel, and she is a professor of psychology at Tel Aviv University. And she's an author and a lecturer, and her newest book, which we have here on the show, is called Whatever Works, The Small Cues That Make a Surprising Difference in Our Success at Work and How to Create a Happier Office. Her previous book, by the way, also excellent, which is called Sensation, The New Science of Physical Intelligence, has been translated into a bunch of languages, too many for me to read, actually. She's the chair of the School of Psychological Science and the Dean of Students of Tel Aviv University in Israel. And her research focuses on 2 main issues, really: embodying cognition, the influence of physical and bodily sensations on our decisions and emotions, judgments and behavior, and gender differences and gender roles. Her work has been published in all sorts of prestigious journals. She received all of her degrees actually from the University of Tel Aviv. She did her postdoctorate at Harvard University. She was a visiting lecturer at Harvard University and also a visiting scholar at the University of California, San Diego, which happens to be her favorite city, by the way, is San Diego. I learned that in the book too, by the way, and she's smiling at that. And she literally lectures around the world to employees and executives of various companies such as high tech, banks, the general public, and her topics include everything from interview skills, success at work, creativity, happiness at work, influence of the physical environment and bodily sensations, judgments, emotions, and behaviors. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show and welcome to a new direction, Dr. Thalma Lobel. Welcome, Dr. Lobel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I am delighted.
You know, I love this book. Before the show started, I told you that I just absolutely just love this book, and I really truly do. It is something that's in my wheelhouse. You know, studying psychology in grad school and just loving human behavior and how certain things affect human behavior. Before we dig into this book, I got a general question though, because something occurred to me as I was reading this. Because having taught psychology for over 20 some odd years. I would bring up these different pieces of research, and there's always the students who say, "Well, that's not me," right? And then you start talking to humans about the human research that you do, right? And we'll talk about a number of things. Or you'll say something about music with words, or music in the background, or lyrics that you know, and you'll say something to the effect of, "Well, you know, it's affecting you," and they'll go, "Oh, well, not me. Not me. It doesn't affect me," right? Why is it that as humans, we want to believe that we're the exception to the psychological research? Why do you think that is?
Well, first of all, I think that everybody wants to feel unique and doesn't want to feel that he or she are affected by external factors. People usually believe that others are affected by external, but I am affected by something more substantial, like my personality.
Right.
So that the others are affected, but it's a very well-known phenomenon. And but on top of that, I have to say that everything that we'll talk and that all the studies in psychology are based on the average. They are comparing one group to the other.
Right.
The one group that was manipulated by some factor behave differently than the other group. That doesn't mean that everybody.
Right.
And we have to always remember, I always tell that to my students, when I say that on some subject, men are different than women. Doesn't mean that all men are different on that factor than all women. There are more men that are on that side, more women on that side. Right. So we're talking about a statistical difference.
Right.
But you're absolutely right that people usually think that I'm the different one. I'm more unique. My personality is what's important and not what you're doing to me.
It's really true. We just feel that and I think that's part of it, right? I think it's what you're saying is that we all want to believe that we're just uniquely different, and we don't want to be categorized into the same.
It's part of a group, and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I just find it funny because it goes without fail that there's always going to be a whole bunch of students who say, well, this is not true. That's not true. So let's just dig right into this, because I want to dig right into your book, because in chapter 1, one of the things that you start talking about is whatever works at the office, cues in your environment. And so let's talk about how the office layout actually influences our productivity. You talk about the differences between open and closed spaces, and actually you have a subtitle called Open and Closed Spaces, which one is better for you? So let's talk about that. So what did your research find out in terms of office layouts, what works and what doesn't?
Most studies that were conducted on that found that on the whole, it's better to have a private office rather than an open space. And the best thing, and many companies do that lately, is to combine the two. That you have like an open space, but people who need to work on something that they need really to focus, they have also some private offices that they can go. Because I'll tell you, in open space, they found that people complain mainly about the noise and about lack of privacy. These are the two things that people keep complaining. For example, one of the things that really disturb a lot of people is phone talks by colleagues, because it was found out that when you hear a phone call that you hear only one side of the conversation, it interests you because that person says, wow, you don't say. And you say, what's the other person say? And if you hear both sides, you see it's not that interesting, you don't listen so much. So so a lot of people do, like they put headphones or listen to music. They also found that unlike what people thought when they did the open space, people don't interact more necessarily in open space. They write more emails, but not necessarily interact. One of the reasons could be that everybody can do everything that you do, with whom you're talking, or who went to which cubicle. So the combination is the best thing, that more and more the model of. But now that a lot of people work from home, and I will be glad to talk about that, that's less relevant to a lot of people now during the pandemic. And the other things that I talk in the book are very relevant to those who work at home, and we can talk about it.
Yeah, well, let's get to that. I want to talk about, because you talk about flexible spaces. I think the piece of research that probably really should fly in the face of people is that, we keep building these open floor plan spaces, but the truth is, thinking that we're going to increase interaction, but the truth is it's actually less interaction.
Exactly. There was a study just recently that showed exactly that it did not increase interaction. It's easier for the companies because it saves space. If everybody has his own or her own private office, you need much more space. But they paid certain price, and that's why they decided, a lot of companies, that even though there are open spaces, they should also build many private offices. And there is like the hot chairs, that it doesn't have to be only your office, but at certain times and certain tasks, this is your office, and you sit there quietly.
You,
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the other thing I loved about your book. By the way, the book's called Whatever Works, and we're with Dr. Thalma Lobel. One of the things I loved about your book is that you give tips in the book of things that you can do.
Yeah.
Throughout the course of the book. I love that, by the way. I love that you made this book very practical, and I think this is what people have to understand is that,
That
yes.
was, I think, yeah, sorry. My idea when I wrote this book was exactly what you said. On the one hand, it's based solely on studies published in top journals, but after every idea, I give the tip, what you can do with these findings.
Right.
Which usually, when you do just research and publish in general good, excellent journals, you don't give the tips.
That's
Really,
that's
yeah.
true. That's really really true. We're with Dr. Thalma Lobel here on A New Direction. We'll be right back after this. Hey, folks, you know what? You know that I have two great sponsors, right? And I talk about them constantly. And one of them is Epic Physical Therapy. And I love them. I go to them. I use them. I still get injured from time to time. And sometimes I just go to them because I just feel like I'm not moving the way I really want to move. And you could say, well, you're getting older. Well, I don't accept that. As a matter of fact, I want to continually move better, or at least have the best movement that I possibly can. And, so here's the thing. That's what Epic Physical Therapy is all about. They work with people like me, but they also work with elite professional athletes, right? And it's really cool because I am getting to work with the physical trainers that work with professional athletes. And they, you know what, they take care of me just like they take care of them. And they help me be better, move better, feel better. And they help me in everything that I want to do. I still want to be able to lift weights. I still want to be able to do, hard walks and trails and things like that. I still want to be able to play golf. I still want to be able to do all the things that I did when I was much younger, but I want to be able to still do them at the very best that I can. That's why I love Epic Physical Therapy, because here's the deal. They really do customize a treatment program that's tailored to your individual needs. And listen, and because they work with professional athletes, they really understand the need to treat the entire body as a functional whole, not just your symptoms or your injury. So look, if you're looking for epic relief, epic recovery, and epic results, don't look any further. Just start with Epic Physical Therapy. You can learn more by going to epicpt.com. That's EPICPT.com. And Linda Craft and Team Realtors, you know what? For 35 years, they've been helping people around the world buy their home or sell their home. When you say, well, hold it, I thought they were located in like the Research Triangle Park of North Carolina. Well, they are. But here's the thing. This is how they do it, right? So because they're independently owned and operated and they don't belong to like a, national firm, they created relationships all over the world with the best possible experts in whatever area you live in. So when they make a recommendation to you of who that expert is, you can be assured it's not somebody that belongs to the same firm. No, they literally have sought out the absolute best in your area to help you buy or sell your home. And you say, well, how they do that? Well, it's because they created relationships with these people over the course of time. In 35 years, a lot of relationships you could create. It's the same practice that they do with their customers. They create the relationships one at a time. They develop them. They maintain them. They nurture them. They grow them, and they stay in touch with them. That's why Linda Craft's customers say that their customer service is legendary. So when you're ready to sell your home or you're ready to buy your next home, don't look any further. Start with Linda Craft and Team Realtors. And you can learn more by going to lindacraft.com. That's LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with Dr. Thalma Lobel, and we're talking about her book, Whatever Works. By the way, available Amazon bookstores, also available in Audible. It's also available on Kindle. So there's a variety of ways you can listen to the book as well as read it. You know me, I'm a big fan of not just listening. I'm a big fan of reading, and so you really should read this book. I know you can't see it, those who are listening, but I have marked this thing up like crazy. I have marked up like crazy. I told Dr. Lobel I've got 39 pages of notes, and so for the next 3 days we'll be doing the show. So she's not going to be going to sleep. I'm teasing, of course. That
I'm not afraid. I'm good.
She's not afraid. She should be. She should be afraid. So let's talk a little bit further about this, because you brought up a topic that I think is near and dear to everybody's heart, and that is we're living in this pandemic right now. And so, offices are not something that we're going to, and it may not be something that we're going to go back to in a very long time, and possibly not ever. So, what does the research tell us about working from home? What should we know?
Well, we should actually. I'm very glad you asked me that, because what happens is that offices will not disappear. Of course, after the pandemic, I'm sure a lot of people will go back to offices, but a lot of people will continue working from home at least part of the week. So the disadvantages of work, let's start with the advantages of working from home are mainly saving commute, especially for those who, travel for a long time to go to work. And for people, many people, not all people, it's a quieter environment. Continue what we talked about the open space for those who work in open space. But even those who work in private offices have all the time people that come and call them, let's have coffee, I want to ask you a question. At home, unless you have kids that don't go to school now because of the pandemic, which is another issue. But if the kids went to school, you can really work quietly. But what you have to do is several things. First of all, designate your own place. You can work all over the house, and that's fine from time to time. You can lie in bed with a computer, with a laptop, that's fine. Nobody sees. But in general, designate a place that will be your office. It's very important. The second thing, and that relates to probably questions that you want to ask me later, try, if you can, at the home, to find a room with a window. For two reasons. The first reason is that artificial light is worse than daylight. And if you can have natural light in your office, always choose that room. Because natural light is not only that you see better, because you can see with fluorescent light or any light, but it makes you perform better, more vivid, and less fatigued, less tired. And there are many studies that show that. So always, even if you look at the computer like I'm looking now, and I can see the screen very well, so I can say, what do I need the light for? If I have a window, I can close it. I'm in Israel now, it's night, so it's really night now, so I am with the lights. But during the day, it's sometimes tempting, turn off the light, close the window, I can see the screen. Don't do that. It makes you more tired without noticing it. I mean, when you notice it, you don't know it's because of that. So that's the first. Second thing is the view. If you want me to talk about the nature now, or I can go later.
Well,
So
so let me just say something, because you just said something before you go on to because it's subtle, and listeners may have missed this. We don't really always know how we're being affected by our environment.
exactly.
We take it for granted that we are in such control of everything that we feel, everything that feeling tired, for instance, right? People do not understand that just having real light will make you
Yeah,
feel less tired. I think we can miss that subtle point that there's things in your environment that are affecting how productive and what kind of performance you can have.
exactly.
So let's talk about, so now let's go to the nature piece and talk about how that
Okay.
helps us in productivity.
Sure. But thank you so much for stressing that. That's exactly that, because there are many things in our environment that they are under our nose. We don't miss them, but we don't know that they affect us, like
Right.
temperature and light and all that we talk, and they affect and colors, and they affect it much more than we want to believe. And once you know their effect, you can control them, you can manipulate them, and have better performance and reduce the stress, as we'll talk during this interview. So nature. Uh, this is not only the view from the window, but this is a starting point. There are many studies that showed that nature is not just beauty, that we enjoy the beauty, but it really has a strong effect on two things. It reduces the stress, which relates to what you start your show every time, that we need really to reduce the stress. And the second thing is that it enhances our performance. So, for example, there are many studies I can describe. Some of them that, for example, were done in Japan, that they took people to various forests, and all the time they did it again and again. Each time they took two groups. One group was sitting in the forest, one in urban environment, and they told them to sit and view the nature. Then they told them to take a walk. And before they came, and after the set, and after the walk, they took their blood pressure, they measured their cortisol, which is the anxiety hormone, stress hormone. They measured all kind of physiological factors to see whether they are stressed or not. And again, it was found that those who sat or walked in nature had lower stress compared to those who did exactly the same thing, but in urban environment. So and there are many studies like that. There are other studies in the United States that were asked people to take a walk, a longer walk for about 15 minutes. One was done in Stanford, either along the campus near a park or in urban environment. And again, they measured their physiological, they asked them how they felt, and they found again and again that though the nature reduced stress. So that's especially now in the pandemic, that a lot of people are stressed for various reasons. We are afraid to be sick. Some lost their jobs. Some are afraid that they might lose their job. Lack of control, contradictory messages, a lot of things that make us more stressed than usual.
Yeah.
Take a break. Sorry.
No,
Yeah.
no. It's just here's the thing, and you talk about this in the book too, that it doesn't have to be just walking in the forest. I mean, if you're near the ocean seems to have the same effect, right?
Definitely. That's what I wanted to say. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's even research that says when people were vividly imagining walking
Exactly.
through they were able to reduce.
Yeah. Exactly. Thank you. I just wanted to say that if you have the chance to, first of all, it doesn't have to be forest. It can be a park. It can be a small garden, flowers, trees, beach, river, anything. But so if you have that around you, go and take a break. Even if you don't feel tired, if you have a lot of work to do, take a break because it will enhance your performance. So take a break and walk a little bit, or even look at it if you're too tired to walk. But as you say, Jay, sometimes my office or my house is in an urban area and I don't have any park or anything. In that case, you can look at pictures, you can look at the internet, you can do an imaginary walk via the internet. There are studies that they showed people a stressful video. And then to some, they showed, they let them walk, imaginary walk in the internet, imaginary walk in nature. And the others watched other pictures, nothing to do with nature. Those who watched, took an imaginary walk, reduced the stress. And moreover, you can listen in the internet to nature voices, waves, waterfalls, birds. That also helps. So if you don't have a chance to go because you don't have any nature around you, do that. But really, really connect to nature. It really helps.
Her name's Dr. Thalma Lobel. This is her book. I know you can't see it, but it's called Whatever Works. It's absolutely fabulous. It's filled with tips. And we're just talking about a few of them right now. And you're listening to her New Direction. And I want to get to something that is my wife and I argue about all the time. So I'm going to put you on the spot, right? Are you ready for this?
Dangerous sport.
All right, here it is. Here it is. We argue about temperature. She says, I'm too cold, and I go, I'm too hot. Now, this is a common problem, not only, between husbands and wives, but this is a common problem in the office.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because temperature affects how we perform. Talk about how temperature affects our performance in tasks, certain tasks.
So there are many studies that show that the best temperature is between 68 to 72 Fahrenheit, which is 20 to 22 Celsius.
Right.
And within this range, or if I take the optimal range, which is a little bit wider, it's better to be a little bit cooler than a little bit warmer within this range. That means that if you raise the temperature because you are cold above 72, every degree will decrease a little bit your performance. So the best thing is to remain in this area of 68 to 72, that you feel comfortable, but don't make it too hot, too warm even, because if it's you feel that you are warm and it's nice, but then you will feel tired again and you won't know why.
Yeah.
And that will affect your performance or your next performance. But speaking about between you and your wife, this is a very common thing, general. But about the temperature, there are many studies that show that men always feel that they are, they want to raise, to lower the temperature. I've been in many meetings where most were men, and I know already. I take a sweater in my purse. I'm talking about summer because they make it so cold. And it's a very known fact that women always suffer more than men, that it's too cold, the office is too cold. One of the reasons is that if you have your private office or you sit at home, you can control the temperature. But if you have something that you can't control because it's something in the building, there are lots of fights about it. And because it was designed for men at that time.
Yeah, I find it interesting that you talked about that. Actually, we seem to do better in cooler temperatures than we do. We become more tired in the warmer temperatures. But I thought it was really interesting when you started talking about negotiating.
Yeah.
That we talk about how as it gets warmer, that actually if you're negotiating with someone, you probably actually want it warmer, right?
Exactly. People know that what people usually know about temperature is that whether I feel comfortable or not, but they don't know, I think, how it affects performance, but they definitely don't know how it affects conformity. It was found that people, the warmer the room is, the more you're conforming with the other person, you agree with them. So if you are negotiating and you are the one who controls the room, make it a little too warm, not too much, because there is a better chance the other person will agree with you. On the other hand, if you have a discussion group,
okay,
and you really want brainstorming, you want each one to say his or her own opinion, don't make it too warm, because
Okay.
then they will agree with the first person, and you don't want that. So
Oh,
it
right,
depends.
right. So if I'm trying to have a creative meeting, cool it down so I can get everybody talking.
Exactly.
But if I
So we don't agree with each other.
right,
Exactly.
but if I need somebody to agree with me, turn the heat up.
Not too much,
Not
as I
too,
said, that it will be uncomfortable. And also, so that's true. There were many studies that show that. And also, there was one study, for example, that when they put it a little bit too warm, people, and they gave people to analyze a problem which had many factors, and they had to think about all the combinations. They didn't perform well in the hotel temperature. It was too difficult, so when you sit alone, you can control the temperature, do that. And if you are sitting and negotiating, remember, make it a little bit warmer for the other person.
her name is Dr. Thalma Lobel. The book is Whatever Works. It's an absolutely fabulous book. All right, so you divided this book up into three sections, and the second section was entitled Whatever Works for Your Team. Surprising factors that will change how we work together. I thought that one of the really interesting things, and of course, I think everybody's heard the statistics that, in about, we get an impression of people in about the first 7 seconds. We make in less than a tenth of a second. I've heard it as much as 300ths of a second that we
Yeah.
determine if somebody's trustworthy or not. But here was one of the pieces in that section that really got me, and I think we dismiss it, and that is the importance of the handshake. Talk about why the handshake is so important and how it really influences, how we may be perceived, or matter of fact, it could influence how you get your next job.
Yeah, but this is one of the chapters I don't talk, hardly talk, because during the pandemic now nobody shakes hands.
That's
So
so true.
seriously,
It's true.
so actually it's not. So uh, yes, and I think for a long time people won't shake hands. Seriously.
Right. Oh wow.
Uh, so that's
I think it happens a little bit. Okay, well let's skip that one. But right, because right, I'm not thinking about that. We're in a pandemic. But let's skip to the chameleon effect because I love the chameleon effect, right? And
yeah, that's it.
mirroring
Yeah,
how others fit in, because I've even seen this on Zoom calls where
you could, yeah.
right, where John Barg and Tanya Chartrand, I
So I
think they were
do
both
the
at New York University at the time. They talked about mimicry or the chameleon effect. Talk about how the chameleon effect works, and when it should be used and how it affects us.
So, first of all, for those who don't know what it is, it's mirroring the other person. If somebody touches his or her hair, so I also touch my hair. If somebody sits with the hands crossed or the legs crossed, you do the same thing, like I'm doing now with Jay. So those who see me, they want Jay to like me. So that's the thing.
I love you.
So, so the thing is that people, without noticing it, unconsciously mirror the other person behavior. As I said, small things like touching the hair, moving sometimes they repeat also verbally what the other person said. And it was found, and that's the interesting stuff, that without noticing it, you like more the person who does it, who mimics you, as long as it's not too bland, if it's
Right.
subtle. And there were many studies that showed how an interviewee who did that compared to somebody who did not mirror the other person, that he was liked more, the one who mirrored the other person. Also, there are other studies that show that people helped more those who mimicked them, who did similar behavior. So that's a fact. Now, how can we use it? So if we want people to like us in an interview, for example, or in negotiation again, when we want the other person, whether we are negotiating with the boss about salary or about a promotion or about with our colleagues or in interview, do it very subtly. Don't overdo it. But when the other person touches his hair or her hair, touch your hair, cross your legs very gently, and that may help.
Yeah, here's the thing, the chameleon effect or mimicking others, it has to be subtle, but because you can of course go over the top and it can be a problem, and people recognize when,
That can be the other way around. Yeah,
right,
exactly.
because we can be
Has to be
inauthentic,
subtle. Yeah.
inauthentic about it. Her name is Dr. Thalma Lobel, from Tel Aviv, Israel. That's right. She's all the way from Tel Aviv, Israel. She's listening to her here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, listen, I want to talk about, you know what, my two favorite sponsors, right? Epic Physical Therapy and is one of them, and they're awesome. I love them. I love going to see them. Look, they offer the most advanced, top-of-the-line equipment, including the anti-gravity treadmill. It's called the Alter G. It's unbelievably awesome. Takes the pressure off your joints. If you're a runner, I happen not to be one, but if you are a runner, I'm going to tell you, it really does take the pressure off, and you can go ahead and you can run without feeling that pressure and that jolt. They also have the Normatec compression sleeves. Have you ever wanted to just have something just put pressure on your joints and it just makes you feel like you're stronger? Well, they've got these sleeves to help build your strength, and they're fantastic. And then there's the Game Ready. And I talk about it every week, how much I love the Game Ready, but really, seriously, it is ice cold compression at the same time. And it really does take the swelling out of your joints and your body, and it's fantastic, and I love it. They are trained, yes, they are trained. Not only do they have the best equipment, but they are absolutely trained and certified in the most comprehensive cutting edge treatments available. They really are. And I think I've used pretty much all of them, like blood flow restriction therapy, dry needling. If you've never had that, it's great, take out swelling. And then cupping, which is the little circles that sometimes you see on the back of swimmers where they're manipulating the muscle through the skin. It's fantastic. So look, when you're ready for your epic relief, epic recovery, and epic results, don't look any further. Look to Epic Physical Therapy, and you can learn more by going to epicpt.com. That's EPICPT.com. And Linda Craft and Team Realtors, 35 years in the real estate business. And you know what? They're still going strong. They're still at the top of their game. And that's almost unheard of over 30 years, but they still are. And you know why? It's because they still do the same things that they've always been doing. And you know what that is? They develop relationships with people. Because what they understand is that, your home may be the largest purchase that you ever make, but the truth of the matter is, it's where your greatest memories are made, is your home. Think about it. When you think about going to your grandmother's house, do you really remember how much she paid for that house, or do you remember the memories you had with your grandmother? Of course, you remember the memories, right? And she understands, her and her team understand that those memories are the most powerful things because those memories will last a lifetime, more so than the price of the home. And so she wants to get to know you, get to know the memories, and get to know that home so well because she wants to treat it exactly the same way you want it to be treated, which is why her customers call her the legends of customer service. So when you're ready to sell your home or buy your home, why not tune into the relationship, the memory makers? Why not check out lindacraft.com? Start there. It's LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with Dr. Thalma Lobel and her book, Whatever Works. And we're talking about the subtle things that happen inside of our offices, around us, that just really do create a major difference in how we may perform and how we interact and all sorts of things. It's an absolutely fabulous read. And so I'm going to move us down the line here, if you don't mind, a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about anger, all right? Because sometimes, anger, especially in negotiations, right? I mean, I consult, I coach and consult companies, right? And a lot of times when there's negotiations, sometimes people can be angry in the negotiations. They feel like they've got to put on the face and they got to get really, really angry and they've got to just, bam, 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 and but that's not necessarily going to work, is it?
Well, first of all, in general, it's better to be with express positive emotions. That will definitely help. So that's in general, people will probably come to better concessions if everybody is in a positive mood. But there are many cases, like you say, that you get angry,
Right.
whether the other person makes an unreasonable offer or completely doesn't agree with what you think is a very reasonable thing, or talks not nicely, or many reasons to be angry. And the question is, what would you do with this anger? Should you express it or not? In what way?
Right.
So first of all, one factor is that it depends whether you are in power position, in a powerful position or not. if there is a negotiation and you're in a powerful position, for example, you know that you have many offers and they will be happy to have you if it's an interview or if you want to sell something and there are many buyers, then if the other you can express your anger. And the other person, because when you express an emotion, the other person can express either a similar emotion or the opposite emotion.
Right.
Which means if I'm expressing anger, the other person can also express anger, which is not good, or express fear because he or she are not in a powerful position. So first of all, remember, what is your position? Are you powerful or not? But if you do express anger, two things. First of all, express the anger towards the offer, not towards the person. That's very important. You can say, I'm very disappointed. I'm very angry that this is your offer. It's completely not invisible. Don't say you're whatever, you're.
Don't make it personal. Don't make it personal. Right?
Not make it personal at all. Talk about the offer and express your anger. I'm very angry that you offered this unreasonable offer. But don't say you're a schmuck or whatever. The other thing is, even if you do angry, you express your anger, don't shout, don't lose it.
Right.
Show that you're angry. You can say it on your face. But don't shout, don't lose it, because that will bring just the opposite. So in general, if you are angry and you are in a powerful position, you can express it towards the offer, not towards the person, and not lose it. Don't shout, but show your anger. If you are in a less powerful position, try not to show it. Try not to show it, because the other person might be angry back, and that will lower your chance for good concessions.
Yeah.
So then you can just say, maybe you can think about something, but don't show your anger. So as I said, you have to consider your position, and then, and if you can, sometimes you can't control the anger. I mean,
I talk about that, right? I mean, emotional control. I talk about your training.
Exactly what you said in the beginning. That's exactly that. Even if you're angry, try to control it, especially if you feel that it will hurt you. It will hurt the negotiation.
Right.
But if you are in a powerful position, say it, but also control it. Don't shout. Just say, I'm angry that this offer is really completely unacceptable.
Yeah, I love that. You had in section 3 entitled "Whatever Works: The Power of Personal Habits," and I want to hit this one because this is one of the most controversial things out there. And matter of fact, you had a subtitle that you had, and it was I think it was entitled like "Smartphones and Cognitive Performance," and I wanted to entitle it "Smartphones Make You Stupid," and because and you talk about, matter of fact, you talk about. I thought it was funny, and I just want to point this out. This is what kind of sense of humor she has. So she actually brings up in the book phubbing. If you've never heard of PHUBBING, it's called phubbing, and what that is known as phone snubbing, right? Where you're talking to somebody and they happen to look down at their phone, right? Phone snubbing. So she talks about smartphones. I want you to talk about, because I found the research fascinating, that the smartphone really doesn't help us at our work so much, does it?
Everybody knows that our life in some ways became easier when we can look at the email. We can be reached everywhere we are. We can check the mails. We can send the documents, all the things that are related to work. Okay. But while we are working, it's more disturbing than anything else. For example, there was a study that they invited several groups to a room, and the experimenter, just by chance, put her phone on some of the people's desk, and on the other desk she put something else, and then they gave them some cognitive tasks. Those that had the phone on their desk performed worse. But in another study, they divided the participants to 3 groups. One group was told, don't bring anything into the room, including your phone. Leave everything outside. The other group was told, bring only your phone and put it on your desk. The third group was told, bring all your belongings, but put your phone either in your bag or in your pocket where you usually put it, not on the desk. Then they gave them cognitive tasks. Those that had the phone on their desk performed worse than the other two groups. Those that had the phone outside the room performed the best. But then the researchers said maybe even though they didn't use it, they checked the messages, they looked. So they told them to turn it off. And they did that again. And guess what? Even when the phone was turned off, those who had the phone on their desk performed worse than the other two groups, which means that just the mere existence of the phone next to you, even if it's turned off, disturbs your performance. So my tip is when you're working on something important or that you have to focus, take the phone, put it in another room. So if you work in at home, that's very easy. If you work in the office, put it someplace that you don't see it. And then work for an hour at least. Don't take it. If you are expecting an important call, okay, so after an hour you can check and see if you have important messages but don't put it even next to it, even if it's turned off. And you will see, you can have your own lab. Psychology, you will see that you perform better. It disturbs even if it's turned off. It's unbelievable.
You know what's interesting about this research that you point out in the book, and I found this to be fascinating. It wasn't just their phone. When they
Also the phone of the experimenter, yeah.
Right, the experimenter put their phone. It wasn't even these people's phone, and they still did worse having the phone next to them.
Exactly. It's not their phone, so what do they care about the messages? And still, it disturbs.
Yeah.
So people don't realize it. They really have to take the phone out of their sight while they're working on something important.
Yeah, I think there was another piece of research, as I recall, in there too, that you talked about people put their phones next to your bed. By the way, I have a habit of putting my phone next to my bed.
Me too,
and it's a horrible habit. But I think didn't you point out that there was a piece of research done that people who put their phone next to their bed, they actually don't get as good enough sleep. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Any screens actually, when you also computer, but especially phones, if you do that just before you go to sleep, and some people do it for an hour or two, just work on the phone, they sleep worse than those who do not do that. Which of course we know that sleep, as you talked in the beginning of your show, it's so important. People sometimes don't realize how sleeping normally and certain hours, depends from person to person, it makes you less tired and less nervous and less productive and everything. So if you can, don't, even if you put your phone, but don't work on it just before you go to bed. Don't do that.
Yeah, well, there was something else that you talked about that you pointed out in the research about looking at, like, I think it's tablets or phones, right? The experiment was they had people like read from a tablet and then read from a book.
Compared to read from a book, exactly. And yeah, and again, it disturbs their sleep. So you said when you recommended my book, you said I love reading, with real books. A lot of young people read only from the Kindle or that, which it has its advantages. You don't have to care when you travel so many books, and you can do search. But before bed, it's better to read in a real book.
Yeah, because evidently, I don't know all the pieces of it, but evidently looking at the phone or looking at the tablet versus looking at the book is really really affects how we end up sleeping. I found that just fascinating.
Yeah.
So,
and a lot of people don't realize that. And this is, for example, a piece of information which is so important. You just tell that because some people will do it less and will help their sleep.
Let's move on to one that's going to be a little bit touchy too. All right, and this is chapter 12, the sound of music, what happens when we listen at work. Right? Because there's going to be a bunch of people out there. You know this, Dr. Lobel. There's going to be a bunch of people out there going, I got to listen to music when I work because I am far more productive when I listen to music in the background.
It depends. Yeah, it depends. They know which type of music exactly.
Let's talk about that.
First of all, there are many individual differences. When I have to focus, I don't want to listen to any music, and I love music, and I know how it's greatest effect, music, really, on our emotions, on our performance. And the best thing from studies is that, listen, if you have to work on something which you really need to focus and to think and analytical thinking, put the music before you start work. And don't put sad music, but rather something, happy and something that you like before. I'm stressing that before you start working. Then turn it off, or put something in the background if you like it. That is not the most, not disliked and not mostly liked. Something kind of neutral. Don't put something that you really like, then you will pay attention to that rather than to you focus on your work, and don't put something that you completely dislike, because again, you will pay attention to it.
Yeah, I think.
It also depends, just want to say, depends on the tasks. There are many tasks that you can put, like they are more proofreading, things that you don't have to think so much more, just to read the thing and to see if there are mistakes or something. Or then music is fine. If you feel that you are more productive like that, do it. As I said again, don't do something that you particularly like or particularly dislike, but something more neutral.
Yeah.
But if you have to focus on something more that you have to think more, I personally find it disturbing a little.
Yeah, I read a book a week for the show, and so I cannot have words. I cannot have music that's got words, right? And I especially cannot have music that I know every word to, because the next thing I know, I'm no longer reading. I'm no longer reading the book. I'm singing to the tune of the song, and I'm not focused on what the person has just written, right? By the same token, if I hear a song that I just can't stand, I am so distracted. I cannot. I'm like, I got to turn the station. I stop reading so I could turn the music, because I don't want to listen to that music anymore. I think that's the point. Is that depending on the task, we have to be extraordinarily careful. Do you realize
if you do something physical, that's good to have with words and everything. And there are many studies that show that once you put a fast music that you like, you perform better physically. You run faster on the treadmill or whatever you do. But when you work on the computer, and say again, if you want really to focus or to read a book, that you want to focus on what the person that wrote the book said, it's difficult to hear music unless it's really in the background, something that you're not particularly familiar, and so some people like it. But before, I want to stress again, before you start working, listen to for 5-10 minutes to something nice like Mozart or something. It will help. It will increase your emotions, and that will increase your performance.
The book is entitled Whatever Works. It's absolutely fantastic. We have been on together for an hour, and it has gone so fast.
I enjoyed it.
I've had so much fun with you. You have been an amazing guest. I want to just thank you so much. So folks, listen, this is the show, right? I mean, was she great? Was Dr. Lobel great? No, she was better than great. She was absolutely fantastic. She was awesome. Get the book, whatever works. Get the book, whatever works. Listen, folks, you know what I say to you every week, and that's this, right? Be inspired, because when you're inspired, that means that you can inspire others. And when they're inspired, that means that they'll inspire others in turn. I'm going to be back next week with another great show, another great guest, and we're going to have another great book. And you know what I say to you every week, and you know what that is? Ciao, everybody.
To go a different way, yeah. The time has come for a new direction. When you lost your confidence and the answers don't make sense, you got to keep your hope alive. You got to know you can survive. This is your